Be sure to remove both spacers from the wheel. Place the wheel on a big bucket, preferably a bucket that has some weight to it. Remove the valve stem cap completely and let out all the air. I use these little rubber grommets on the valve stem caps, which makes it hard to let out all the air because as it gets lower, the stem wants to go into the wheel. So you might need to put a nut around the valve stem if you need it to stay in place while you let out the air. Now that you let out all the air, you can go ahead and loosen up that valve stem nut. You should probably keep that nut on there for now so you don't lose the stem in there if it gets pushed in. Now you want to loosen up the rim lock. Don't take it all the way off. Make sure it's still on there pretty good. Just loosen it up. Now what you're going to want to do is get the bead off into the center channel of the rim. Usually on a front tire it's real easy. You just push down and it dips right in. On a rear tire it's a lot more difficult sometimes if it's really tight on there. So what you can do is stick an iron in there and just push like this if it's too hard to do it by hand, just to get the bead unseated. Go ahead and flip the tire over. Do the same thing on the other side. Make sure it's all unseated. Then flip back over to the brake rotor side. We're going to be on the brake rotor side because it's going to help us get the tire off. This is really important when you're doing the rear tire because the sprocket's kind of sharp and you don't want to cut your hand while you're getting rid of the tire. So you're going to start on the brake rotor side. You're going to start on the other side of the rim lock. You're going to stick in 3 of your irons, just like this. Now there's a trick to this. When you stick them in, you should feel the curved end of the iron. You should feel the curved end just slip over the bead and get a little bite, and then it hooks on there. You don't want to go too far in because you'll be scooping on the tube and you're probably going to pop it. So get your 3 irons in and just 1, 2, 3, scoop the bead out with your irons. Now your middle one's going to slip right out, and these guys you can slip right under the brake rotor. Then you can continue on around the tire. Just like that. Doesn't matter if these fall out now, the bead's up there pretty good. And you can just go right around the tire. So now you got 1/2 of the bead up above the whole side of the tire on the brake rotor. The rim lock's free and you got no air. So now you're going to want to take out the tube. You're going to take off the little valve stem nut. And you're going to start by pushing the valve stem through the rim and then pulling it out of the tire just like that. Pull it up over the rim lock. Get the tube out of the tire. So there you go. Getting the tire off isn't too bad, but some other videos don't really show you in detail how to do it. They kind of go quick. So I'll try to slow it down a little bit. So right now you're on the brake rotor side, your bead's all the way up. What you do is you flip it over. I start from the rim lock side. You gotta hold the tire up, kind kind of on both sides if you can, or at least just hold it up so it's pushed up against this side of the rim. That way you can get a bite on it around the rim lock. And you just start getting this part of the bead over the tire. Now what you do is get a good bit of the tire over, maybe about half of the bead over, just like this, on either side. So what you see here is we're getting the bead up on this side. The bead is still in on this, and of course on the other side, the brake rotor side, it's all the way up over the lip of the rim. And I'm going to show you why we're doing this. So we got the bead up on this side about halfway. It's on the rim lock side. Now what you can do is you take this rim, you're going to push it into the tire this way. See that? Now the whole tire is dipped into here, or the whole rim's into the tire here, and you can just push the tire right off. Just like that. And there you go. Now you can go ahead and take the rim lock off if you want and have a little inspection on that. If you have a rim band, you're gonna have to take that off first because it goes over the rim lock. This is the stock rim band. And yeah, you can have a look at your rim lock. Make sure that everything's in place, that it's not falling apart too bad, or you have to replace it. Don't worry, it's cheap. If you have to replace it, no big deal. Now's the time to do it. Now's the time to have a good look at your rim too. You want to check for any sharp edges. It is worth a few seconds to run your fingers along the rim. Make sure there's no sharp edges. And don't drop it. I like giving it a little spray down, clean it up with some contact cleaner. Now it's time to put your rim lock back in there. Don't tighten it all the way, just screw it on a little bit so it's on there pretty good. Just a few turns. Now it's time to put your rim band back on. If you use duct tape, if you use 1/2 inch Gorilla tape or something like that, you're probably going to want to do that before you put the rim lock back on, and then just poke a hole in the tape. Otherwise, if you have a rim band, you're going to want to put that on over the rim lock. And make sure you line up the hole in the rim band with the hole for the valve stem. Make sure it goes over the rim lock. I always double check. Sometimes it doesn't go on quite right, so you can have a look around the whole rim. Make sure it's centered on the rim. And then probably you didn't get the valve stem alignment quite right with the rim band, the valve stem hole. So you're going to want to fix that too, of course. You can just kind of slide the rim band just like that till it sits right in place. Gives you some room to work with when you have to put the valve stem back through. Now take your pretty new tire, kind of get out any webs or dirt or anything that's in there. Might want to blow it out with some compressed air, just get it clean on the inside. Sometimes they have stuff in them. Now, but sometimes the front tire will have an arrow on it indicating the rotation direction. So you want to be aware of that. You want to check your front tires. I don't know, I've never seen it on a back tire, but check the tire. It may have a big arrow on it pointing one way or the other in terms of rotation. That's going to determine how you align the tire. You know, you could have it flip backwards and that wouldn't be good. But mine doesn't have that arrow, so I can just put it on any which way. So how you're going to want this to end up is you're going to want to end up just like how you started, where the part of the bead that's up above the rim is on the brake rotor side. That way, that's the bead that you're going to start pushing in. You're going to want to do that on the brake rotor side. So the key in doing that is making sure that when you start to put the rim and the tire together, that the brake rotor is towards the tire, right? So that way when you end up putting it on the barrel again, this part of the bead is going to be on the top side, and you can do all the work on the brake rotor side. So that's the key, brake rotor towards the tire. I don't know if this is the professional way to do it, but this is how I do it, and it works. I start on the rim lock side. The trick here is that the rim lock needs to be below that bead. So if you have it like this, you're going to run into trouble because the rim lock is above the bead of the tire. So it's simple. Just push the rim lock over the bead just like that, and there you go. And now you can just kind of ease a little bit of the bead over so it's kind of sitting in there just like that. You can kind of do that as much as you can by hand. Might not be able to do much, but a little bit helps here and there. Set the tire just like that so the brake rotor side is up. You got the rim lock in there above the bead. You got a little bit of the bead on, but obviously, as you can see here, this back side of the bead needs to get in there. There's a lot of things you can do to make this part easier. If you leave the tire out in the sun for an hour or two before you do this, it's going to loosen up a lot. The rubber's going to loosen up. It's going to make it a lot easier. Another thing you can do is spray Windex, as I'm sure you've seen. You can spray Windex on the bead here and it'll sit better. It'll slip right over. I just sprayed that bead off with some Windex. Careful when you're doing this because the tire's not fully on the rim and they could easily come apart, so make sure you're holding on to them pretty good. Now what you're going to want to do is get a tire iron and just scoop the bead on over. And I have a big old tire iron to do this, but you can do it with a small one too. Just like this, get a little bite out of it, and then just like that, easy as pie, slips right over if you got the Windex on there. And then there's the last little chunk. Yeah. A bit too much there. If you bite too much, just move over, bite a little bit less, and what do you know? It went in easy. So somebody else had a real nice video about putting on a tire, and he said, you know, if it's too hard to do, you're probably doing it wrong. So a lot of it's technique there, as you just saw. Now I use the double tough tubes. Makes it a lot easier. Make sure you don't pinch them. You could be a lot rougher with them and not be worried about pinching them, so I use the double tough. Just to be sure, anyway, you can put some baby powder on the tube. Now you got your tube all baby powdered up. You can set it just like this on top. Get that valve stem aligned with the valve stem hole. Now you go ahead and start at the valve stem. Lift up the tire just like this. Kind of shove it in there. Good thing about these double tough ones is that you can be a little bit rougher with them, and you're not going to pinch it or break it or something. And just go ahead and keep shoving it in along the tire just like this. Now, when people talk about pinching tubes, I think probably one of the most likely causes of a pinched tube, well, I don't know if it's most likely, but at least I always make sure, because it looks like it's a close call, but when you put it in around the rim lock, you want to make sure that the tube is above the rim lock, right? Because when that rim lock's seated, it's going to be pushing up this way. And if it's on the other side, you're going to pinch it easy. So just make sure you can kind of get a visual. You can pull up the bead and see that it's up above the rim lock. Keep on pushing it in there. And there you go. You might notice that the valve stem came a little bit out of alignment with the hole. Well, you can still kind of reach in there and scoot it around. Now this part gets a lot of people, and it got me for a long time, getting the valve stem through the valve stem hole. The first thing you're going to want to do is pop that stem in there. It's not going to be going right into the hole unless you're lucky, but just pop it in so it's in the rim and not outside the rim. Now that the stem's in there, the tube is fully in there, go ahead and grab a tire iron, get it maybe a few inches offset from the stem itself, so it gives you some room to work. And you can go ahead and lift like that. Now I'm going to try to see if I can get this on camera. You can kind of see the stem in there. If you can't, it's right there. And you can see how it's trying to get into the hole. Now there's a number of ways to get it into the hole. One guy talks about how he puts his finger in there, but I don't know how you're going to fit your finger in there really. So what I do is I get a little tool like a like a flat blade screwdriver or a pick tool or something like that, and I just kind of nudge it into the hole. Gotta be careful when you do this, because I mean, one slip up and you're gonna poke that tube. So just take it easy and don't try to force it. It's hard for me to do it while showing the camera, but kind of see I got it through there, and with the tire iron in there, it'll kind of pop itself through. Now what you're going to want to do is get your little valve stem nut before it falls back out of there, and just give it a couple turns on there. So now it's going to stay in there. Now I do one more check, make sure the stem is perpendicular to the surface of the rim. If it's not, if it's not straight, if it's off a little bit, you can reach in and tweak the tube as you need to. Right now mine looks pretty good. It looks like it's pretty straight right there. So I do a couple double checks here just to be safe on the tube. There's that, and then also I like checking the rim lock, making sure once again that the tube is on top of the rim lock. Okay. So when you start putting the bead on, you're going to want to start across from the rim lock again, just like right here. All you got to do is get the bead over with one iron. It's really easy, shouldn't be hard to do. And then do it with the other irons. Just see how a little bit of room right around the spoke area right here. Just any kind of hook. How this tool works is that it's going to slip in the bead like that, and then you just kind of nudge it onto a spoke. Easy as pie. Now your bead isn't going to jump up. If you try doing it without this, you're going to have to try and hold this bead down as you work your way around. It's going to get real hard to do. So this makes it a lot easier. Now, most of this part is easy. It's just not going to take too much work getting the bead on around the tire. And it's just kind of fall into place. Once again, this is another part where it's real easy to pinch the tube if you're not careful. So when you put the iron in, obviously curve side down so it hooks the rim, but just slip it right in there until you feel it bite, and then pull it out just a little bit so it's hooked on there, but it's not on the tube. If you jam it in there, you might poke the tube, or if you jam it in there and then try to do this, you're going to pinch the tube. So just nice and easy, get it in there, and then get a little bite like that. Now here's where you get to the fun part. This is another thing that I don't see other videos talking about a lot, but when you put the bead over on the rim lock side, once again, you're going to want the bead to be between the rim and the rim lock, right? So you get a little bite like this. And what I like to do, just to make sure, you can start going. You can kind of see the rim lock right there. You're going to want to push on the rim lock a little bit. That'll make sure the bead gets between the rim and the rim lock, and not on the other side of the rim lock. You're not going to be able, the bead's not going to seat if you get it on the other side of the rim lock. You'll see the rim lock poking out and it just won't look right. So there you go. You got to make sure you do that. And just keep on moving here. Not too hard. Pretty easy. And the Bead Buddy's doing its job. Notice how I'm taking smaller and smaller bites, because this last part is where it gets tough. Now this is where I do a couple things. Put the old Windex on the bead, which might help a little bit. And then I get out my big old tire iron. which again is worth the however much it costs. Can't remember now, maybe it's 20 bucks or something, I don't know, but it's worth it because it's going to make your life a lot easier. And once again, you're going to really want to make sure you get only a little bite on the rim. Don't pinch the tube because you're going to be using a lot of force right here to get this over. Just like that. Now obviously, if you had a bite of the tube, it's going to be real easy to pinch that tube because you're just going to be cranking. So just make sure, get a little bite of the rim just like that, and then have at it. Now towards the end right here, probably not going to be able to put an iron in there, but it's okay. If you got the Windex on there, it'll slide in. What you can do is either hit it with a rubber mallet, or you can kind of scoop it in. Oh, that didn't work, so I could probably just push it in now. There you go. So now it's pushed in there. And then once you got the bead around all the way, you can just kind of push down, take that Bead Buddy out, and you're good. Now that's pretty much it. Here's the last part. You're going to want to tighten that nut down a little bit on the valve stem because you're going to need to push the air onto it. And you're going to fill this tire up till the bead seats. But anyway, you got that valve stem nut down there, so the valve stem isn't going to plop back in. And you go ahead and start filling up with air. Thing is here, you're just going to want to watch the bead come up and seat against the rim. When you're putting air in, don't go too crazy. You don't want to get it over about 35 psi. That's what I've heard. That's what I've been told. 35 is probably about all you need, 35 or 40, just to get the bead to seat. If you're having trouble, spray some Windex, bounce it on the ground or something. Just don't overfill the tire. You don't want to blow up that tube. So I'm going to go ahead and check the pressure here. It's 24.5, that's too high. I like putting my tires at 14 psi speed. So I'm going to go ahead and let some air out here. Now, you can go ahead and kind of put that valve stem nut down there. You don't really want to tighten these things a whole lot. You just want to make it so the valve stem isn't going to flop around. The tube moves a little bit. But I actually don't use those. Like I said, I use the grommet, which helps keep dust out and other stuff. So I just go ahead and slip that down just like that, get it tight. Go ahead and put the valve stem cap back on. The rim lock, you can tighten that now. What I do is I start by hand tightening it. I get my wrench, just tighten it a little bit, just decently tight, not too tight. You don't want to over tighten it, you don't need to. That's fine, and that's it. That's the tire.